Thank you so much, Kushal. Namaste, Ram Madhavji. Thank you so much to the organizing team of India Foundation. It's a great honor to be able to have your attention and speak to you for some time. The topic that we've been given at this amazingly named conference, Meta, Rebooting to a New Era 2.0, is about identity and rights. Now that, as you can imagine, covers a lot of ground. So I want to very quickly give you a 10-minute, 10,000-year meta view, very quickly run into it, and then Rajiv will add, and then we can quickly discuss so that it becomes more interactive and not just a few speeches, although it's difficult to top the excellent work that Abhinav and Guru just did. So I congratulate them. What is a 10,000-year meta view? Ultimately, technology and society are all connected, right? So in 10,000 years ago or so, humanity invented agriculture, and we went from hunter-gatherers to the first settled societies. Any settled society automatically has a hierarchy. Then after a few thousand years, we invented metallurgy. Metallurgy led to larger societies. Later on, we invented gunpowder, then industrial revolution. What economics 101 tells you, that the larger the society, larger the polity, there is more economic growth because there is more specialization and more scale. So in a way, our history of 10,000 years has been about having larger and larger socio-political units. Society demands us to have duties, but when we talk of states, we talk of rights. Again, in society, we have to talk about what we must do. In states, we talk about rights, whether they be individual rights, group rights, we come on later. Now, what happened is when we were kind of, we had around 2,005 years ago, large empires like the Mauryan Empire, Roman Empire, the Chinese Empire, but they could not become institutionalized beyond a point. There was the development of an ideology for even larger units, which is Abrahamic proselytization, which led to bigger units, because you no longer had to tell a soldier to fight for this or that cause. You were pre-programmed to fight for a certain cause. That led to a new world. That new world led to the first universalisms in the world, the first homogenizing universalism in the world. This is the only truth system. That led to Europe conquering most of the world 200 years ago. And around 500, 700 years ago, there was also Islam's golden age, which had conquered the entire commercial trading areas between Europe, Asia, and parts of Africa, the then known old world. What happened was, the same thing that led to this great focus on ideology and organization in these Abrahamic proselytization system, thanks to technology again, led to its own schism and demise. So we had Shia Iran seceding from Sunnidom, and we had the Protestant revolution in Germany. The Protestant revolution in Germany led to the incipient first modern nation-state system. The modern nation-state system was a response to Christianity's civil wars. And they led their energies outside, but internally they started developing modern secular nation-state systems. This process culminated in the two world wars of imperialism and internal fighting. Once that culminated, modern political philosophy was born, most beautifully exemplified, and I strongly disagree with parts of it, by John Rawls in America in the 1970s and so. Now, the modern political philosophy of John Rawls is basically a debate between equality and liberty, right? Just like there was a Cold War between the Soviet Union and the so-called free capitalist democratic world, this debate was just happening between equality and liberty, how much redistribution to have. So John Rawls had this topic of the veil of ignorance. We would pretend that we are all atomic individuals with no pre-existing identity. Based on that, we'll come up with the philosophy of rights and identity, duties for the state, and accordingly we'll proceed. However, the Westphalian political system globalized with India and China coming up as civilizational states. And in turn, there's a lot of immigration to now Western societies. So what we saw from the 1970s, and of course the Soviet Union collapsed, that two-dimensional debate between equality and liberty was missing some three-dimensional texture. What was that texture? The texture was, how do we think of fraternity? Because the Rawlsian idea of identity and duties and rights was taking as a presupposition a pre-existing, relatively homogeneous ethno-linguistic kind of state. But the reality, as we know in continental-sized countries like India, was we have beautiful and amazing ethno-linguistic diversity, and of course with immigrants there, it changed as well. Now identity has made a massive comeback in the Western political philosophy in the form of the woke discourse. So liberalism there went from Rawlsian liberalism of identity agnosticism to identity obsessed. And not just obsessed, in a very negative sort of way. That if you are of a certain community or race, you will perpetually be the oppressor. If you are of a certain community or race, you will perpetually be the victim. And we can have a debate so long as you agree with these axioms. Otherwise, you are a capital B bad, capital H human being. You're a bad human being. We cannot have a discourse after that. Now, where the Indic view or the Dharmic view says, it says, hold on, even by your language, even by your idiom of identity and rights, there was something called fraternity. And fraternity, once we have the modern nation-state system, in the Dharmic view says, actually, we have this concept of Smarta, right? In Smarta is basically we worship 5 gods in the Panchayatana Puja system. There is a Nirgun Bhagwan, we take a Sagun version of it, and then we have 5 versions of that. We can have an Ishta Devta where we say, this is my favorite god or goddess, but the other 4 are not false. The other 4 may be emphasized less. And similarly, we can have beautiful quotations from the Rig Veda and so forth. We were of the view of mutual respect, not just tolerating each other. That is what is fundamentally required back, not just in Western or Eastern political philosophy, in global political philosophy, to add back that 3-dimensional texture of fraternity. Because without fraternity, there is no liberty and equality, because without fraternity, there is no nation-state. What happened with the nation-state? The nation-state is the ultimate enemy, the modern nation-state, of only truth systems. The only truth systems depended on religious charity and patronage. It depended on certain wars. So, even Iqbal said that in Naye Bhuton mein, sabse dangerous Bhut as an idol, which was used in a derogatory manner by him, was the Bhut of nationalism. So the modern Dharma is very comfortable with nationalism, but Dharma is not of the past, it is of the future. We are entering a world, a metaverse, so to speak, where technology is leading to such rapid economic growth, which was beautifully exemplified by Guru and Abhinav, that we are having, that hereditary identities are getting dissolved and mixed and mated. Women are being financially emancipated. The whole concept of linguistic diversity can remain thanks to technology. I can talk to Kushal or Rajiv or anybody else, and I can have a glass which will just say, if he's saying something in Spanish, it is immediately translating in English. And that can happen for any Indian language as well. So what is happening now is that we are reaching a world where identity is itself getting transformed by technology. So basically, liberalism assumes homo politicus. Like a certain kind of economics assumes homo economicus. Liberalism assumed a certain kind of homo politicus. That is now being added texture, and that is what India's contribution needs to be. As the world goes back to certain forms of polytheisms, agnosticisms, atheisms, India needs to tell the world that this modern political philosophy of yours has a major lacuna of this identity and rights discourse, because it has not gone to the spirituality and the soul of the human being. It is skin deep, it is not soul deep. So basically the nation state is the ultimate meta technology. Nation state is a technology that allows other technologies to proliferate in terms of financing, in terms of social organization, in terms of what we call Sangathan. So I just want to conclude and hand it over back to Kushal by simply saying that I call this concept of Dharmatva, because I say that, just like for the last 100 years, we had the concept of Hindutva, we need a vision for the next 100 years, where we'd have not just an Indian view, but a global view, because there is a massive spiritual void in the world. We are basically individual citizen customers. Old gods are difficult to believe in. The old, only true gods are difficult to believe in for many, I would not say any educated people. How do we replace that? How does technology play into that? That is a discourse we need to play in. I would not like to add to the caste angle, which is beautifully covered. With that, over to you, Kushal.